If you're watching this video, it is because you're looking to make changes and create order in your environment, which is a reflection of how orderly your cranial universe is. Yes, your wonderful brain is asking for a change. When we created this workshop called UCO with 4 masterclasses for full activation, the first thing I did was to put it in practice in my life. Here in Vimes, everything that we teach is effectively tested, and in my case, the results were amazing. The truth is that when your brain is organized, everything around you becomes organized. As explained by Paulo Ravallo, a psychologist who specialized in cognitive behavioral therapy, cleanliness and order greatly influence our mental health. Human beings tend to always search for balance, both internally and externally, and that has to do with our environment. If we look around, everything requires order, even in nature. So we're programmed for that order. I've experienced enormous changes in my life by applying certain things. I thought I was a very organized person, but the truth was I didn't realize I was rigid. So the question arises, what is the difference between being orderly and being rigid? Well, our health helps us to answer that question. If to keep your environment clean and beautiful and your life in order with an agenda and a good schedule, you end up with body pain, pain in your back, a tense neck, I assure you that you are rigid. You're not enjoying the process of being organized. This is a sign that enters your brain, and the brain then sends that message to your beautiful body, and there go the aches and pains. On the contrary, if you enjoy doing what you're doing while you're doing your chores, you fulfill your daily goals, you start by writing them down without spending a whole lot of time on it and no stress, then it means you're doing it really well. You're relaxed, and your body's like, this is good. It tells you when you finish your task to even applaud yourself and say, job well done. Now rest. That was my case. And then that was of the first participants as well, their experience of the Masterclass UCO, which is short for Organized Cranial Universe. From rigidity when organizing their environment and their life in general, they discovered that flexibility is the key, and they began to see with each workshop challenge that organizing can be relaxing and positive in every aspect. Now let's talk about the benefits you'll get by doing your UCO workshop. First, you'll learn simple techniques that are very effective when it comes to organizing yourself at home, work, or even with schoolwork. Your personal organization from this moment will be very different. The second is you will optimize your mental health while your environment is organized, achieving full balance. Remember, mental health is fundamental in every aspect of our lives. Third, you will enjoy the accompaniment of an instructor who's a coach. You'll have daily communication with her and with your classmates. This is something other online academies do not offer. You will have the skills to put into practice with your family and with everyone else who wants to. And we could also mention that the support material you receive is unlike any other. In the information of this Masterclass UCO, you have everything in detail regarding the benefits of doing this amazing Organized Cranial Universe workshop. Hello, buenas noches, good evening, everybody. Happy Monday. Here we are again. Good to have everybody on. I'm going to be looking over here at my screen to see everybody that's logged on. Where's everybody coming in from? I see some people have already said that, but first let me introduce myself. Let me not get carried away. My name is Karen Marinez. I'm an emotional wellness coach. I teach people how to identify what they're feeling, get to the root of the cause, why they feel that, whether they're pleasant emotions or unpleasant emotions, and then helping them to heal. Of course, the pleasant emotions, happiness, joy, we can handle those. But when we get to the anger and the sadness and the guilt, the resentment, we feel them and then we feel guilty about having them, right? Feeling them. Excuse me. So we help you to heal around here. Okay, that's my job. That's what I love. It's my passion project. So glad to have everyone here tonight. If that's something that interests you, please stay. Tonight we're going to discuss the childhood wound of abandonment. Very deep topic. We're going to have to spread this out over a couple of weeks, but we're going to at least get started tonight. So where's everybody tuning in from? Let me see. We have my dear Elvin in the back. We have Jonique from Medellin, Colombia. Hey, Jonique. We have Dr. Jess. So hey, Danielita. We have PJ Pam. Hello from South Carolina. Deborah Owens from Springfield, Mass. Itza from Houston, Texas. Geo Roxy Ebony from Palm Bay. Wow, this community is really growing beautifully. It's exciting to have everyone here. And for those, we have 22 watching. For those that are not on, oh, it's a nose Jonique. Okay, there's a connection going on around here. For those who are not in the chat, we welcome you too. Some people just want to sit back and watch and listen. You're welcome. That's perfectly fine. But if you are tuning in for the first time and you would like to get in the chat, because I'll be asking questions throughout the evening, you press the subscribe button because only subscribers can participate in the chat. I would love to hear from you. It gives me energy. Andrea Holmes, hey, good to see you. Good to have you. So feel free to subscribe, wait a minute, and then you'll be able to get in the chat. Okay? We would love to hear from you. So we have people from all over tuning in. As people continue to come in, they'll continue to put what they, where they're from in the chat. Side note, I had a client, you saw that introduction video talking about the UCO class that I'll be teaching again in September. Those who've already taken it are welcome to join in again, which is great. We just keep organizing more and more. And the new ones coming in will start organizing their space. We go from the bedroom and the closet, the dresser drawer, to the living room, to the kitchen, right to the patio if we have one, the bathroom, and we get it all organized because it helps our mental space here when our physical space is clear of clutter and just good on the eyes. It gives us calm and peace. But in that introduction video about the class, it mentions that if we finish cleaning our home and we have like aches and pains, and the guy does like this. Well, I have a client that said, Karen, I don't agree with that. I said, oh, what is it? And it makes sense. She says, I have fibromyalgia, Karen. I feel pain all the time, whether I do anything or not. So obviously, just a side note, that video is not for people that have fibromyalgia and other joint issues, because it's true, sometimes you wake up, you haven't done anything, and you can have the aches and pains. That video is not for that, okay? We're talking about extremism, perfectionism, and we clean to the point where we wake up in pain because we're striving for something that really doesn't exist. Perfection in this world doesn't exist. Okay, got that out of the way. We have my dad, what, from Alabama. Hey, girl. And Anne-Marie, good to have you. And Tiffany, hey, girl. Good to have you guys here. So, last week we learned there are 5 childhood wounds. Do you remember what they are? Can you put it in the chat if you remember? There are 5 of them. Who wants to start? Oh, we have Luz Naranjo from New York. Hey, Luz, good to have you. Let's see, who remembers? Oh, Grayson. Hi, Grayson. Anne-Marie, very good. Humiliation, that's one. There are 4 more. Anybody else want to take a jab at that? Do you remember? Check your notes. Abandonment, yes. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Nice, Andre. Anybody else want to give it a whirl? Tiffany says rejection. Very nice. That's 3. We have 2 more. ¿Se recuerdan? Do you remember? If not, I'll just tell you. The other one is betrayal and then injustice. For those that weren't here last week and didn't get to see the Grayson said injustice, very good. Oh, look at our prize student here, Roxy Ebony. Go, girl. I know she's taking her notes. Rejection, betrayal, abandonment. She put rejection twice, humiliation, and injustice. Very nice. I did a poll on our WhatsApp chat. Everybody tuned in. It was really great. An abandonment one. So that's why we're doing that one today. We're going to continue until we get through all of them. And we may then just start all over again because they're such deep, profound topics. The wounds that we suffer from childhood, because they're childhood wounds. And what happens is they just keep playing out in our life. It's the same, sometimes the same scenario, but basically the same feelings, like abandonment. From 5 to 10, then we get into junior high school, then high school, perhaps college, the workspace, relationships, marriage, having our own children. And it just keeps cycling. It keeps reappearing until we do what? Until we heal it. So it's the same childhood wound that just keeps repeating itself with different protagonists, different actors in the scene, but the same scene over and over. Do you identify with that? Sometimes we're not even aware of it, but it's like, yeah, that same thing has been going on in my life. It just keeps repeating itself, but we can't stop it until we heal it. But we first have to look at it. So we're going to look at the wound of abandonment. Let's talk about what it is first. Okay, it refers to the emotional trauma experienced when a person, especially in childhood, feels that they do not receive the necessary attention, love, or protection from the caregivers in their life, the parents. Okay, it could be the grandparents as well, an auntie, whoever raised you. But then that would cause other issues, right? If auntie or grandma and grandpa raised me, then where was mommy and daddy, right? So there's abandonment. And the wound can arise from situations like physical or emotional absence of a caregiver, neglect, rejection, or lack of attention. Okay. So let's talk about the characteristics of the abandonment wound. I'm going to be very specific because a lot of you here have been here a while, and you're here because you're aware of your need for emotional wellness, right? You want to get better. But someone may stumble upon this video and say, abandonment, I don't think I have that. So it's going to seem like we're going in circles, but I purposely did the outline like that so that if someone has doubts that they have any sort of abandonment wound, they may come to realize it. At the end, I'm going to give different scenarios so we can visualize what it looks like. Okay, it doesn't have to be necessarily drastic. Bonnie Hops, hey, good to have you. And yes, my thea's from Alabama. Bonnie Hops is here in New York. Good to have you. All right, so the first characteristic of the abandonment wound is feelings of loneliness and emptiness. The person may feel lonely, empty, but even when surrounded by others. Okay. Fear of rejection. Abandonment can cause a constant fear of being rejected or abandoned again. Insecurity and low self-esteem. The person may have difficulty valuing themselves and trusting their abilities, recognizing their worth, their worthiness. Difficulty in relationships. Problems can arise in personal relationships such as emotional dependence or difficulty setting boundaries, saying no, saying, I can do this, but not that, right? And then a very common characteristic is anxiety and depression due to unresolved trauma. Okay, so where does it come from? How can we get the abandonment wound in childhood? The obvious one is physical absence of a caregiver. So it could, we're just going to say the parents. When a parent is absent, it could be one or both, and it could be divorce, right? It could be death. It could even be excessive work. Dad works all the time. I wake up, he's gone. He comes home and I'm asleep, right? Um, or recently I heard of a case, a mother is a diplomat, but she's all over the world. Wherever the government needs her to be, she goes. But so that the children can have some type of stability, she wants them in one place. At one time, they traveled all over with her. Now she has them in one place, but she's not there. And they're teenagers. They need to be guided and cared for, but mom is not there. So see, it doesn't have to be something drastic, but it could even be that mom or dad will work excessively. So it could also be emotional neglect. So the both parents could be there. But I was raised with both my parents. I feel blessed. I feel privileged. They could physically be present, but they don't provide the necessary emotional support. I have another client who his father, he was there, he worked and came home, but he could be sitting right next to him. His father didn't engage with him. There was no conversation. There was no interaction. There was no training. Okay. Um, it could be explicit rejection. Rejected. The child is just rejected or treated with indifference. Like whether you come or go, the parent just uninvolved, unaffected. I think is very important when a child walks in the room. I think it's just anyone walks in the room. The person who's in the room should acknowledge them. But if a child walks in the room and no one looks up, everybody's just on their phone or doing whatever or talking, whatever. That's rejection. It's indifference. And the child feels it and they feel lost and also empty and abandoned with good reason, right? How about an inconsistent environment? The parents are inconsistent in their presence and support. Maybe dad comes and goes. Maybe dad has two families, right? Or mom, she goes through her thing and she leaves for a couple of weeks and then she comes back. It creates insecurity in the child. When is mommy coming back? Why isn't daddy here? When is he coming? That's a form of abandonment. So I share this so that we could see that it doesn't have to be like like divorce or even death. It could be something as simple as the parents are there, but they're not really there. And so then how does this affect us in adulthood? Number one, it creates codependent relationships. The person is constantly seeking approval and affection from others and willing to go above and beyond and do whatever and endure whatever, sometimes even abuse for fear of being alone. Well, I'll just put up with this because I don't want to be alone. Another consequence, avoiding intimacy, fear of getting too close to others because they're going to hurt me. A good example of this are men who cheat. Well, I'll abandon her before she abandons me. Isn't that something? The third one is self-destructive behaviors, temporary relief, right? Looking for temporary relief in harmful behaviors like substance abuse, just to escape, just to not feel the abandonment. The last one is difficulty trusting. So past betrayal and abandonment makes us have issues with trust issues. If my mother and father or mother or father abandon me, how can I trust this person? Right? It makes sense. So if you're identifying with any of these things, please know you're not abnormal. You're perfectly normal. You're growing to understand what your childhood wound is. And again, in the chat, in the poll that I sent, this got the highest rating. And it shows that a lot of people feel abandonment. And side note, I don't just sit here saying, oh, yes, and that, no. We all have experienced a portion of all the wounds. So I too sit here realizing where I was abandoned by my parents. No one is exempt. It's just some of us have it more pronounced, more deeper than others. But we all have some part of all five. Okay. So let's go in depth with the characteristics of this wound. Okay. Feelings of loneliness and emptiness. So despite being surrounded by people, there's a deep disconnection, as if no one really understands or cares about me. And those people usually deal with social awkwardness. They'd rather be to themselves. They isolate a lot. They say, I'm not a social person. I don't like, but a lot of times is because they're never fed by being around even good people, because they don't allow it. They have a disconnect because it's what they were taught from childhood. Okay. Also, a fear of rejection. So again, to avoid the pain of rejection, the person could avoid situations that involve vulnerability or emotional exposure. For instance, forming a relationship with the opposite sex. A woman might say, I can't trust men. My dad left me. My dad abandoned me. If I date and get married, this guy, as good as he may seem to be, he's bound to abandon me too. So because she fears rejection and feeling that abandonment all over again, she just prefers to, I'll just stay away. I'll reject others before they can reject me. And it could be with same sex, right? Friendships may be very difficult to form because of the lack of trust. You don't let people in. Another one is insecurity and low self-esteem, self-criticism. And this is something that I really like talking about, our inner dialogue, because so many times we're extremely self-critical and harsh on ourselves, believing we're not good enough. And even when people tell us, oh, she just doesn't really know me, that's why she's saying that. But no, you're worthy, you're precious, you're intelligent, you're capable, right? So we don't feel good about ourselves, so then we depend on external approval. And we need validation and approval from others. And what does that lead to? People pleasing behaviors, overextending, overdoing, going into debt for others just to gain approval, never saying no. We want to try to find a way to get other people's approval so that they praise you. Oh, you're a wonderful person. And even then, we're happy to hear it, but we still don't feel it because we don't believe it because of that wound of abandonment. But we continue to seek that external approval. Number 4 is difficulty in relationships. One type of relationship that people with abandonment usually develop is codependency. So they're overly emotional dependent on their partners, friends, family, seeking constantly their support and approval. I quote, let me read this from Google. It says, the codependent partner cannot function on their own and does not have healthy boundaries. They arrange everything in their life around another person. In a codependent relationship, also known as relationship addiction, one person tends to take on the role of the caretaker while the other acts as the dependent, excessively relying on the other person for emotional or physical support. This relationship dynamic often leads to low self-esteem, lack of autonomy, and a sense of worthlessness. Codependency can occur in any type of relationship, including romantic relationships, friendships, and family relationships. It's very interesting to see it among couples. You can also see it among parents and children. Sometimes a mother may complain that these kids, they don't leave my house. I need them to get good jobs and make enough money and get out of here. I need my space. But then they encourage the kids to get deeply into debt, and they do other things so that the kids can never leave. So they say one thing, but they really feel another, because without their kids, they would feel so empty. I need my kids, but they make it seem like the kids need them. But both ways, they're both codependent, and it's not healthy. But if I make him so dependent on me, then he won't abandon me and I'll never be by myself. Isn't that something? So it keeps showing up in so many different ways. Jonique says true. Yeah. Another way, I'm sorry for keeping saying difficulty setting boundaries. So someone with the abandonment, there I go again, the abandonment issue, struggles to establish and maintain healthy boundaries because the relationships are dysfunctional, they are codependent. I don't want this person to leave, so I don't want to set a boundary and say no because she or he may leave me. So I'll just do whatever they ask, whatever they want. And it affects you physically, mentally, emotionally, right? Because again, if my self-esteem isn't good, if I don't feel worthy, I'm just like beholding to this person. Like I'm just so grateful that they want to be with me or that they are with me. I'll go to the ends of the earth for them just to keep them in my life. But we overextend because we're not setting proper boundaries. And how about this one, a fear of intimacy? So we all humans long for connection. People need people. But someone that has the wound of abandonment longs for connection, but at the same time, they fear emotional closeness. So it's like, I want to, but I don't, but I want, and there's this struggle. So it leads to contradictory behaviors on approaching and distancing in relationships. You don't know what to do, right? Here's an example of a codependent relationship. Here's a situation. Maria constantly seeks her partner's approval and feels anxious whenever they're apart. She avoids expressing her true feelings and needs, fearing that her partner might leave her if she becomes a burden. So how does that affect Maria? The relationship becomes imbalanced. Her partner feels overwhelmed because she's so needy. Then he gets frustrated. There are conflicts, arguments, and then that affects her sense of self-worth. It goes down, it diminishes. And what does she continue to do? Suppress her own needs and desires. There's imbalance, there's codependency, very unhealthy. All of this because in our childhood, at some point, we suffered the wound of abandonment. But it makes sense. And that's the purpose of this, all these emotional wellness Zooms, so that you can live, so you can understand that what you're feeling is okay. It's normal. So many times we say, I don't know why that upsets me. I don't know why I'm so angry all the time. I don't know why I'm sad. This is why. And just knowing the why is, wow, a whole, this revelation, it starts the journey to healing. Okay. A fifth aspect or result of the wound is anxiety and depression, unstable moods, frequent mood swings, periods of sadness, hopelessness, and anxiety, feelings of hopelessness, that things will never improve. You will always feel alone and abandoned. I spoke to someone today. She said, this is never going to go away. How can I heal from this? Bonnie Hop says, I don't know why. That's me. Yeah. And that's why I invited you. I wanted you to be here because this is the beginning of healing. It helps us to learn more about ourselves. We need to know who we are, what we're dealing with, so we can get the help for ourselves. So that feeling of hopelessness, I'll always feel alone and abandoned. That comes from the anxiety and the depression. But I promise you, there is help. You don't always have to feel this way. Trust me, okay? How about intrusive thoughts, constant worries about being abandoned or not being good enough for others? So here's another example of emotional neglect. Laura is a 10-year-old girl. She lives with her parents who work long hours and are frequently stressed. When Laura tries to talk about her day or her feelings, her parents are often too busy or tired to pay attention. You'd say, well, that's a normal thing. But how does that affect Laura at 10? She starts to believe that her feelings are not important and she has to deal with her emotions alone. And so not having an emotional response from her parents make her feel unvalued and lead to the development of an abandonment wound. Isn't that interesting? Again, now we're looking at it from the child's viewpoint. If you look at it, you turn this way and look at it from the adult viewpoint, the parents might say,
we're not doing that on purpose, but we have to work. We both have to work to make ends meet. But it's the lack of emotional response to their daughter when they are with her that causes her to feel the abandonment wound. Isn't that interesting? You can be tired and still make time for your children. Listen to them, talk to them, let them talk. You can explain, Mommy's exhausted, but go ahead. I have my eyes closed, but I'm listening. Or let me sit up because you're important to me. I want to hear what you have to say. What a difference that makes in a child's life to be heard, to be listened to. Dr. Just so wrote crickets, which means not a peep from her parents, which she would hear as her emotional response. Yeah. So then if my mom and dad don't value me, they don't feel that I'm important enough to be heard, that they don't listen to me, they don't value my opinion, or they don't care if I look sad or worried. They don't ask how you doing, how was your day, how was school, what's going on. You draw the conclusion, which is incorrect, but it's what children do. We take everything onto ourselves, a responsibility, and so we say, well, if mommy and daddy don't value me, I must not have value. I must be unworthy. Okay, so then imagine you get a relationship, it's like this, and the codependency begins, but that's unhealthy. So learning how to heal that, to have the emotional bandwidth to even be in a relationship with, you know, opposite sex or not, but to have healthy relationships, even with girlfriends, if you're a female. So here's some other associated behaviors and traits: self-destructive behaviors, perfectionism. We attempt to be perfect and flawless so that people that come in contact with us will never abandon us because we're perfect and we're flawless, right? IA, you made it. Okay, from San Antonio. Ileana from San Antonio. Welcome, Ileana. I'm glad you're on. Glad to have you here. Yeah, so that's where perfectionism comes from, because maybe if I'm perfect, so the child gets straight A's, and that still may not work, but it just continues throughout life trying to be flawless and perfect. Difficulty trusting, just general distrust towards others because of past experiences of betrayal and abandonment. And what it could do is it keeps you away, or you may be in relationships, but you keep them superficial. People want to get in, they want to get in deeper with you. They want to really, because they see that you're a wonderful person, but you keep it surface, right here, and you keep that emotional distance. Have you been around someone and you could feel the wall is up? You can't get in there. You cannot penetrate. It's because they're afraid of letting you in, and then you hurt and abandon them like everyone else has in the past. But what that does is, for that very person, that they continue lonely and feeling that abandonment, because there are good people that want to be close to you. Roxy Ebony is in agreement. She said yes. How about sensitivity to criticism? Wow. So someone criticizes us, and it could be very constructive criticism. It could be your manager, it could be your spouse, it could be a friend, right? It could be a counselor. But you have an intense reaction to it. Because how does the person with abandonment interpret criticism? As rejection or threat of abandonment. I did I did poorly. The person translated, they hate me, they're going to abandon me. And the person just said, you know what? And they were very kind, but it doesn't matter how they say it, but you are so used to abandon, that's how you translate it. And so you can't grow. So then the reaction that you have, then people don't even want to help you because they're like, oh, she can't, I'm not going through that again, right? And you cripple yourself. Oh, Miss Spirals is on. Ah, she says, or does the person sometimes scream, you can't abandon or ignore me with their actions? Yeah. Yes. And that's where that codependency comes in again. And they hold on and they pull and yeah. Okay. Because I can't let him or her leave me. Could be at work. Someone with the abandonment wound may overwork themselves to be seen as indispensable. They fear being fired or undervalued for their efforts. So they work, or they do things above and beyond that the boss didn't even ask for. Another flip side of it is John, for example, was abandoned as a child, and he finds it difficult to trust his colleagues and superiors. So he feels unappreciated at work, and then that makes him avoid taking on new responsibilities or projects. Isn't that interesting? That could lead to promotion. So it can go from one extreme of overwork, overextend at the job, to I'm not doing anything. I'm not going for that promotion. They don't appreciate me. I can't trust them. I'll do all of that. And they'll still fire me. They're still going to abandon me. One extreme to the other. And that's what we're looking for, balance. But we need to identify it. We need to see it. So then what happens to his career? It stagnates because he misses out on opportunities for growth and advancement. He fears rejection and failure so much that he can't showcase his abilities. He can't. He's held back. And he can't build, or he has issues building a successful professional life. These wounds seep into every aspect of our lives, every aspect, even spiritually. Some people want to do more spiritually for God and progress and do and use their time and energies, but they're so from one extreme to the other, they can't find the balance and they never are able to reach their goals. So we got to get into, that's why we're talking about these wounds. How about in friendships? How does it show up? They may feel the need to always be available, say yes to everything, because if I don't, my friends are going to leave me. They'll leave me behind. They'll stop inviting me. And you're exhausted, but you say yes all the time. Romantic relationships, extreme intense jealousy could happen. Controlling behaviors due to the constant fear that their partner will abandon them. When I took a class and I first learned about these wounds, again, it seems like really like, wow, it was just so, it just is so profound. And the example, I'm looking at my notes, the example that was given was a kid who is at the park. He's 4 years old. He's at the park playing and having the time of his life. But what do all kids do when they're playing? They could be with 20 kids and they're playing in the park. About 15 minutes in or 10 minutes, at some point they look back because they always want to make sure what? Their mommy's there. And then they see her and then they go back to playing. Well, this particular time, this little boy looks up and mommy's not there. Oh, and he starts panicking because that's his security. Of course, he's 4. That's mommy. She's everything. And he starts screaming and he's crying and he's yelling, "Mommy, mommy." He doesn't see where she is. And where is mom? She was sitting on that bench watching her baby boy play, and she sees the ice cream truck and she says, "I want to add to his joy, his excitement. I'm going to get him some ice cream." So she just goes over. She's not far, but he can't see her. She goes and gets the ice cream, and then she hears him screaming. Oh, she runs over to him, "Baby, I'm here, I'm here." But that stayed in his mind. He doesn't even probably, it's possible that he doesn't remember it, or he does remember it, but he doesn't realize how much of an impact it makes on him. So now he's 19 years old and he has a girlfriend. And he really loves her and they're having the time of their lives. And he sees her on her phone and he's like, "Who you texting?" And she's texting a friend in college, a male friend. And he loses it. And she's looking like, what is it? He doesn't even realize why he blew the handle. It's because the first time that he remembers having the time of his life just being lost in joy. He was abandoned. Mom went to get ice cream, but in a 4-year-old's mind, that's abandonment. He looked and she was not there, and he had to scream and holler and cry, and then she appeared. So now he's having the time of his life. He found the love of his life, and he's something inside his unconscious mind says, when you're feeling this type of joy, you're going to get abandoned. So she just happens to be texting. There's nothing going on. She's just texting the guy, her college, maybe he's a classmate. And how does he internalize that? She's going to leave me. She's going to abandon me. Deep. And the thing is, he has no idea why. His mother may remember that ice cream experience. He may learn about that. She's casually talking about it in 4 or 5 years. And he'll say, I don't even remember that. Or maybe he does, but he doesn't realize the impact that it can have, that it did have on his life. So it can be major things, a death or a divorce from, and the parent leaves. Or it could be something as simple as that, at a matter of minutes, the child looks up and doesn't see mom or dad. Isn't that interesting? It just shows how we interpret things, and it will follow us for a lifetime. Because if he doesn't fix it with this 19-year-old when he's 19 with this girlfriend, it's just going to continue. And he's going to be a jealous maniac with all his relationships. We have to heal it. Okay, it just says that illustration put things in perspective. Yeah, it's so, in this topic, I was preparing it. I'm like, I can't do this all in, but we're going to have to continue next week because we can't. It's just so, and it's so juicy and good, right? I love it. So the characteristics can vary in intensity, manifest in different ways in each person. We're all so different. But identifying and understanding these characteristics is a crucial step in beginning the healing process. Can I heal? Yes, you can. And then you can establish healthier and more balanced relationships. Okay. There's so much more. I'm just going to say this: the origins again of the abandonment wound in depth. If you want to take notes. Dr. Just so says profundo, which means deep, and Tiffany says, wow, yeah, it's deep. And if you mothers out there and fathers, it helps you to be aware of yourself, your own wounds, but as you're delicately dealing with these children of yours, the next generation, try to be more aware so that you don't create wounds that are so profound and deep. You're imperfect, so you will, but also you can minimize. You being aware can help you parent so much better. And I'm sure you agree. Can I get mothers in the chat? Anybody have anything to say about that? Do you think this is helping you to mother better, even if your children are grown, to be more aware of how you talk to them, treat them, acknowledge them, help them to develop their own feelings of self-worth? Deborah Owen says, I agree. Chica MB says, unbelievable. Bonnie Hops, wow. Yeah, it's amazing. And Gabby's a mom, so she said yes 100% 3 times. So yeah, and Gabby, your son is small, even a better time to get started. But that's the beauty. When you change yourself, your whole environment changes. You benefit yourself and you benefit your children. Lou says she's a mama 3. The age gap has me worried for the oldest. Has worried me for the, yeah. So this information, this knowledge can help you heal, but it can also help you to direct your, treat your children better. Not that you're not doing a good job, but better. Be more aware of how your words and your actions can affect your children. You're sitting in the living room, you're on your phone. Who doesn't sit on their phone, right? But how do you respond when your child walks in? Do you, you're looking, or do you put the phone down and look up and say, hey, baby, how's it going? Or, hey, you look worried. Everything okay? You want to talk, right? Tiffany says, yeah, because I don't want to create the same issues. I know. And it's never too late, but we have to do the work, right? Oh, I'm looking at the emotional wellness WhatsApp chat, and Marion couldn't get on. I'm sorry about that. All right, so let's just look again. The origins of the abandonment womb in depth. One, if you're taking notes, physical abuse, physical absence, I'm sorry, of a caregiver. It could be divorce or separation, right? Uh, a parent leaves the house, the child has lost the attention and support of that parent, right? They may come and go, or they may share the custody, or maybe not. Even if they're intermittently present, there's still a sense of abandonment with the child. Oh, Orlando Delgado, welcome, Orlando. She says she's glad to hear that it's never too late. It's not. Just like you're an adult and you can heal, you heal yourself, you can work better and heal your children as well. Okay? And at least you can treat them better based on knowledge. Okay? Also, death of a parent or caregiver. The death of a parent in a child's life is extremely traumatic. What a sense of abandonment and loss, a mother or a father. And children often, not often, they don't understand. What do you mean mommy's gone? What do you mean daddy's gone? Because the parent is in their own grief trying to explain it to the child. And then mom or dad, the surviving parent, is so overwhelmed with the grief of losing their spouse and then not having their partner to raise the children very often just get neglected. Then people don't step up more to the plate. The child looks resilient, they're running around, they're okay, so I just need to cover myself in grief. But the child feels a deep sense of abandonment. Number two, emotional neglect, busy or disconnected parents. You could be raised with both parents, and you may say, but me and my husband both raised our children. We worked hard on our marriage. But were you too busy with work or even your own problems and couldn't provide the necessary emotional support? And the child perhaps feels neglected or emotionally abandoned. Why? Because it wasn't enough for that child. And you could have 4 children, 5, 6. They each have different individual needs. One may be more independent, the other one may be more sensitive than the other. And that's the parent's job, to know each one's individual needs. And that's why spending time with them is so important. And lack of response to the emotional needs. A child says, I'm sad, scared. For instance, I'm scared of the dark. Boy, get in there and go get da 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 da. Right? That's the response of the parent. But his fear was not acknowledged. He's expressing an emotion, but it's not validated, it's not recognized. I'll give you something to be sad about. Well, something happened at school and you don't even give them the opportunity to tell you what it is. They need emotional support. And if it happened to you, you may likewise do that to your children. Maybe not. But if you have been, let's change. Let's do better, at least. The first part is to be more aware, right? Number 3 is just outright explicit rejection. It could be abuse or mistreatment, physical or emotional, makes a child feel neglected, rejected, and unloved. It could be verbal abuse, constant criticism. Do you constantly criticize your child? Or did you receive constant criticism? Or just indifference? It can significantly contribute to the abandonment wound. Children need attention. And here's a big one. A lot of my clients, I hear this a lot. Preference for another sibling. So parents show a clear preference for one sibling over another. Now, I was with a mom, beautiful woman, yesterday having dinner, chit-chatting. And I asked her, I said, honestly, you have 2 kids. Do you prefer one of the other? And she said, I honestly don't. I know it happens, Karen. She said, but I don't. And she said it was so cute that when her son was like 7 or 8, He was asked by someone, who do you prefer, your mom or your dad? And she said, he told me the answer. And I was so impressed. She said, she was so touched that he said, Mom, I couldn't answer that because it will be like somebody saying, which do you prefer, your heart or your lungs? Isn't that a beautiful response? So she did say, excuse me, that each child has traits that you feel drawn to. But when there's a clear preference one over the other, it could lead to feelings of abandonment. That one that's left out feels not good enough, less loved, right? A lot of times that happens with the middle child. They feel overlooked. No one pays me any attention. And especially, I've had situations where they're different. One is dark, one is lighter. And the lighter one gets more, and the darker one feels, because of the color of my skin, I'm being ignored and neglected. Parents, what a job. But it's usually our own issues and traumas that have not been healed. And it affects how we raise our children, what we say and do to them. So that's why I'm glad you're here, because you're getting the healing you need. And then you can do better with your children. Okay. Number 4 is inconsistent. An inconsistent environment. So the presence and support of the parents is inconsistent. Sometimes daddy is there, sometimes he's not. Sometimes mom's involved, sometimes she's not. So not knowing, not having that stability, not knowing when they can count on the parent's support creates great anxiety and a sense of abandonment. I don't know when she's coming or going. Or dad, I'm waiting for him to pick me up. How many men say, I waited, or women and men, I waited in the window for my dad to come. They said he was going to come Saturday at 5. And I waited and waited and waited, and he never showed up. Oh my goodness, it's heartbreaking. So I can't trust. I'm being abandoned all the time. Oh, Shika MB says it's even harder if the parent had twins. Yeah. What a challenge, right? So it could also come from moving frequently, that inconsistent environment. 1 month we're here, 5 months later we're moving somewhere else, 10 months later we're somewhere else. That, it's interesting how it affects children. A chaotic family environment, no stability. It does not contribute to security, and children feel very insecure and abandoned. So in conclusion, my dear people, my lovelies, in conclusion, understanding the origins of the abandonment wound is essential to addressing and healing these traumas. We can heal from them, I promise you. And all the examples that I shared showed specific situations, so you could see how they can deeply affect a child's perception of themselves and their relationship, because it's the child's perception, it's their interpretation. You're saying, but I was busy working. I had to pay the bills. But the child is saying, Mom is not here because she's working because she doesn't want to be with me. I'm not worthy. She doesn't like me. She doesn't love me. That's how a child interprets. And then there's these established patterns that persist into adulthood. Okay. So identifying these origins allows us to take the steps towards healing and building healthier self-esteem and relationships. So Orlando Delgado, she said how, and you beat me to it. How do we heal? I'm going to start you off with 2 ways to heal. And then next week, it's to be continued. We can't just do 1 hour on this. We have to continue next week, continuing how to heal from the abandonment wound. Okay. The first one, recognize the wound. The first step towards healing is recognize and then accepting that there is an abandonment wound. It can be difficult. Some people are in total denial. I'm fine. I had a beautiful childhood. That's how and you may have, but we cannot come through childhood without wounds. Everyone has them. We all do. So there's no need to deny it, fear it, not want to look at it, right? We don't even want to minimize the feelings of abandonment. So that's the first thing, recognizing it. And the second one is accept the emotions behind it. So you are aware, okay, all right, I do have the abandonment wound. And so many answered here that they had it. So on that poll that they wanted to hear about abandonment, which is why we're doing this one first. So obviously you're aware. Allow the emotions associated with abandonment to surface. And you say, but I don't want to feel that, because what are some of the emotions? Sadness, anger, fear. Can anyone else tell me in the chat anything else that comes, the emotions that come with abandonment? Can you share some in the chat? And they may feel very uncomfortable to us because we're used to suppressing, right? I don't want to feel fear. I don't want to feel angry. I shouldn't feel. And we judge ourselves and we criticize ourselves, and we're very uncomfortable feeling those unpleasant emotions because they are unpleasant. A knot in your stomach, loneliness, yeah, low self-esteem. These are all things that come from the abandonment wound. Accepting it, not as a badge of honor. I have resentment. Oh, yeah. Dr. Just so said, take a nap. That's avoidance. Yeah, I'm just going to shut down, right? And even sometimes when we're awake and we're surrounded by people, even people that we may love, we just, we tune out because we have to disassociate. We have to disconnect. Deborah said afraid and lost. Yes. So we don't like feeling like that. So we criticize, we disconnect, we try to escape from them, but we have to learn to accept the emotions and feel the emotions. Those two things are the start to healing the abandonment wound, all wounds. Okay? We're going to talk about more healing next week. What I would like, and yeah, resentment is huge. Oh my goodness, especially with our parents. The anger and resentment that comes when we're aware of what they did to us, right? So recognize the wound, accept the emotions. Don't judge or criticize them, but accept them. I encourage you to start a journal. Write the emotions out. And to who? And sometimes, a lot of times before we heal, then we want to say, but my mom did the best she could. Of course she did, but that's you as an adult looking back. But I want you to put your mind in when you were 4, 5, 6, 10, whenever those things started happening, put yourself there first. We can't forgive until we heal. We got to heal. So let's do that first, okay? Write it out. Mom did this. Daddy did this. Write it, and don't feel guilty about writing it, and don't judge what you're writing. And don't worry about crossing the T and dotting the I. Just write. Let it out. And if you need to cry, if you need to scream, it's okay to be angry. The Bible even says God, he gets angry, right? And it says, be angry and yet do not sin. But we have permission to be angry. We're human. It's a human emotion. It's okay. You're not going to crack your heart. You're not going to, what's the word, deconstruct if you get angry. Feel the feels. Do not suppress, because it makes it worse. It makes the wound deeper when we suppress. For those of you who are very much aware of what's going on and you make the connection, what each parent did and didn't do that affected you in this way, and you don't want to confront them. I spoke to someone today and she said, but I don't want to talk to my dad about that because he can't handle it. Well, how about writing him a letter that you don't plan on sending, but write it anyway? Get it out. Better out than in. We can't hold this toxic stuff in. It affects our health. We break down physically. The body's like, I can't take this anymore, right? So those are the two things. Recognize the wound, accept the emotions. No criticism, no judgment. All right? Oh, it just says keep going. Yeah, it's juicy, right? I know. But we'll leave some for next week. Elvin, my dear Elvin, says, please don't forget to press the like button. That would help us. It helps grow the channel. It helps share, right? The algorithm puts this out into the world so others can benefit for the information. Olanda says, what if you feel like your childhood memories are blocked? That's a good question. Olanda, I don't think you're a part of the WhatsApp chat. Alejandro, ¿puede poner la información para el chat, el enlace? He got it. Olanda, join this chat. And that's actually what I was going to mention. Anyone who has more questions, that is an amazing question. Please, I don't have a pen and paper to write it down. Olanda, join the chat when we finish and put that in the chat, and I will discuss it next week. If you have any questions, Sally Pettis, how do I talk to a parent who makes it about themselves? Will try to make me his therapist. That sounds, yeah. Sally Perez. Also, I'll say the same thing. Please, can you join the chat, put that question in the chat, and I will address it next week. Anyone else that has any questions, or those of you watching this next week, the recorded version, join the chat and put your questions in, and I promise I will answer. Joanne, you're here. I'm glad you enjoyed. Thank you. We're going to talk more about healing that abandonment wound, okay? Also, if anyone wants to work on this stuff one-on-one with me, feel free to reach out. I'm going to put my email address in the chat. Okay, karenmcoach at gmail.com. Karen M as in Michelle Coach, or Marinez Coach, COACH at gmail.com. Feel free to reach out. Chica MB, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure. I feel like I just got started, like I just said only 5 words, because there's so much more to get to. We're going to be back next week, same time, same place. I look forward to seeing you all. What else? Get in the chat if you're not there. Oh, Andrea, where were you 30 years ago? I was a little girl, but a little girl, yeah, right. But I didn't know, I was struggling myself, girl. And so I'm happy to have learned this. I took a lot of courses during the pandemic, and I learned all of this good stuff. It changed my life. It changed my environment. I am so much happier. I can truly say that I feel joy, and I have healed, and the healing continues because we're constantly dealing with things. But that's why I'm so happy to be able to share it with you. And it's never too late. Better now than 10 years from now, 5 years from now. Anne Marie says, thank you. You are very welcome, Dr. Jess. So you guys have no idea how much I love doing this, because I love sharing, because I know how it affected me, and I want to share it so that everyone else can join. Maggie, you're here. Hey, Maggie. You're very welcome. Love you all. Luz Narado, thank you. I went on so many journeys during this hour. Golden, wow, great. Olanda, thanks for sharing. You're very welcome. Please join the chat. Put those questions in there so we can get to them next week. And if anyone has any other questions, get in the chat and put them down. No shame. We're all going through stuff. I love you too. You're very welcome. Thank you, Miss Spiral, Stacy. Oh, Rosa, Karen, Locon, you provide with many things to think about. I love the write it down idea. Good. Bonnie says, thank you. Oh my goodness, Deborah, thank you so much. I don't know you're here unless you put yourself in the chat. So I love the chat. I'm so glad you all are all here. And please share this with others that can benefit from it. It's 9:01. We're going overtime. I don't want to keep you, but I love you. Big hugs to you all. We'll see you next week, and we'll continue the journey of healing our childhood wounds. Mwah. Bye now. Be well. Take care.
If you're watching this video, it is because you're looking to make changes and create order in your environment, which is a reflection of how orderly your cranial universe is. Yes, Your wonderful brain is asking for a change. When we created this workshop called UCO with 4 master classes for full activation, the first thing I did was to put it in practice in my life. Here in Vimes, everything that we teach is effectively tested, and in my case, the results were amazing. The truth is that when your brain is organized, everything around you becomes organized. As explained by Paulo Rivallo, a psychologist who specialized in cognitive behavioral therapy, cleanliness and order greatly influence our mental health. Human beings tend to always search for a balance, both internally and externally, and that has to do with our environment. If we look around, everything requires order, even in nature. So we're programmed for that order. I've experienced enormous changes in my life by applying certain things. I thought I was a very organized person, but the truth was I didn't realize I was rigid. So the question arises, what is the difference between being orderly and being rigid? Well, our health helps us to answer that question. If to keep your environment clean and beautiful and your life in order with an agenda and a good schedule, you end up with body pain, pain in your back, a tense neck, I assure you that you are rigid. You're not enjoying the process of being organized. This is a sign that enters your brain, and the brain then sends that message to your beautiful body, and there go the aches and pains. On the contrary, if you enjoy doing what you're doing while you're doing your chores, you fulfill your daily goals, you start by writing them down without spending a whole lot of time on it and no stress, then it means you're doing it really well. You're relaxed and your body's like, this is good. It tells you when you finish your task to even applaud yourself and say, job well done. Now rest. That was my case. And then that was of the first participants as well, their experience of the Masterclass UCO, which is short for Organized Cranial Universe. From rigidity when organizing their environment and their life in general, they discovered that flexibility is the key, and they began to see with each workshop challenge that organizing can be relaxing and positive in every aspect. Now let's talk about the benefits you'll get by doing your UCO workshop. First, you'll learn simple techniques that are very effective when it comes to organizing yourself at home, work, or even with schoolwork. Your personal organization from this moment will be very different. The second is you will optimize your mental health while your environment is organized, achieving full balance. Remember, mental health is fundamental in every aspect of our lives. Third, you will enjoy the accompaniment of an instructor who's a coach. You'll have daily communication with her and with your classmates. This is something other online academies do not offer. You will have the skills to put into practice with your family, with everyone else who wants to. And we could also mention that the support material you receive is unlike any other. In the information of this Masterclass UCO, you have everything in detail regarding the benefits of doing this amazing Organized Cranial Universe workshop.